What's going on, all you fantasy losers out there? Me and Nate bringing you this Nick Snack Fantasy Football podcast today on a Thursday night. How are you doing today, Nate?
I'm doing excellently, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellently as well for using adverbs there.
We are indeed. Trying to be positive, but of course, we and you are both now big losers, just like a couple other members of our league. I think there are 4 official eliminations, maybe 5, from this season now. Last week was a tough week for a lot of us. And we, I think, have to understand that the 0% that ESPN gives us mean we are mathematically eliminated.
It does mean that we have a very good chance of winning the toilet bowl, though.
Certainly. I would consider myself a favorite for the toilet bowl.
I've never been in the toilet bowl. This is be fun to win it for myself here for pride.
But we got a big show for you all today. We have Kenny Royer on the show. He is in a huge matchup tonight with Ducky. It's probably the most playoff-like matchup we've had all year. We've got a new sponsor on the show. We'll be giving a recap of where it ended a lot of our seasons, and we'll look ahead. And so, Nick, before we jump in, why don't you tell us about the bet last week?
Yeah, last week's bet we had was Christian Kirk against Chris Olave, who's going to score more fantasy points. And until the end of the fourth quarter, Christian Kirk was in the lead, but Chris Olave did end up at the above Christian Kirk, and Nate did win last week. He's up 7-4 right now.
Yep, so that means this is week 13, am I correct? So we have 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We have 5 weeks left. You need to win 4 of them to get the tie.
So you're saying there's a chance?
There is certainly a chance. But this week we're going a little bit off the rails. We wanted to do something from the matchup of Kenny versus Ducky, and we went with the kickers because nothing else was really inspiring us. Which kicker are you taking, Nick?
Yeah, there's a Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Chargers, and there's Brett Maher of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday Night Football. I took the homeboy Weedham Boys Make Some Noise, Brett Maher, and Nate, you're taking Dan Carlson.
That's right. I went purely with Katie's advice here. I think she's a big Carlson fan, and Katie is the kicker queen, so who am I to doubt her?
That's what her friends call her.
But let's get into the rewind. Alrighty, so if we pull up the standings here, as we alluded to, things last week was a big week for our league. We have Katie in first place, and with only 2 losses now. I think she has won, what was it? 9 in a row. She started 1-2 and hasn't lost since. Incredibly impressive. And what is so incredible about her run, Nick, is that she is actually a lock for the bye week because her only 2 losses are against people who are have no chance of catching her. She lost to her brother, of all people, who's in 10th place, and Kenny, who is in the playoff hunt, but can't get up to 10 wins. So there we go. Now, the second wild card, or the bye spots, is a little bit more for grabs.
Yeah, it could really fall to anyone here based on, tie breaks, who beat who. Kyler, Shane, Matt, and even Kyle have a shot at that here.
Yeah, I think, besides that 6th seed, everybody is in the running. Although, just based on if we go down to the scoring, it seems like Matt, I think, will be hard-pressed to get it just based on points for. Now, we didn't do an analysis of who he beat and who he didn't, but he's not going to be winning any tiebreakers with his points for, I don't think. He's the lowest scorer in the playoff hunt at the moment.
Yeah, we need to double check exactly who beat who, but it looks like Kyler probably has the best shot at that right now, followed by Shane, then possibly Kyle if he wins more games than Matt here throughout the end of the week.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, as we previewed, there are 4 of us who are gone now. I was eliminated mid-tier. Nick was eliminated. Carson was eliminated last week. And Nick, you were eliminated the week before. Now, John still has a shot. He has to win out, and I think has to probably have some craziness happen with these two above him. Or maybe even, I think now Kyle did lose to John. So I think if Kyle loses both games and John wins both games, I think that would mean John is in. That might be the path.
Yeah, what would be really fun is if Kyle and Ducky tie this week. That would definitely, I think, be the worst possible thing for Kyle.
Yeah, no doubt. What's the chance of that happening? Less than 1%, but got to root for chaos once you're in the toilet bowl. Now, looking back at last week, we'll talk about my game first. It was a heartbreaker because 118 is a good score. Once again, I can't complain because you actually had more points against in the league now, Nick. You had the most. Kyle has the second most, and I have the third most points against. But Matt just went off this week. He had Zeke as that trade is paying off big time for him, as I was worried it might. Justin Herbert finally had a good game. Nick Chubb's been doing all year. Traylon Burks, I was watching this game with you, Nick, and his touchdown was like a fumble recovery from Derrick Henry. It was nothing that he deserved other than he was standing right there when the ball got dropped.
Yeah, you got to be on ball at all times. That's what they tell defenders, and apparently Traylon Burks is a pretty good defender at covering the ball there.
Now, Traylon Burks could have scored 0 points and he still would have won, so I can't be too upset about that. But Isaiah Pacheco had a good game. The Dolphins went off. It was just his whole team figured it out besides Logan Thomas. And meanwhile, Jalen Hurts couldn't quite carry my team by himself. Everyone else had kind of a mediocre day. Other than that, Chris Godwin is finally heating up. This might even be his fire week. And both of us made pretty good sit decisions, except for who would have known that JaMychal Hasty would have a great week.
Urban Meyer, I think, would have known that, but
now we go into the Katie versus mid-tier Nick matchup, and she actually now has the tiebreak over mid-tier Nick looking at this because he was the one who beat her. She took care of it, no problem here. Her team is looking strong as ever. I really, with Tony Pollard, he didn't go off last week, but he seems like maybe a starter even with Zeke being good. T. Higgins, I think, is going to be pretty secure going into this. Aaron Jones really hasn't faltered too much. I've been saying no all year. Now I'm saying yes to Katie, which means her season's probably over. But her bench even looks good now. I don't know what's happening. And mid-tier Nick, I guess it's kind of irrelevant at this point. He grabbed Latavius Murray, went all in, but once he lost this game, didn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Fun, but yeah, this next matchup was Carson against Kyle. Here we were watching the game with Kyle, and he was pretty scared that Carson might go off against him, but he was able to pull it out and stick at 97% chance to make the playoffs here. His team's looking pretty good. Obviously, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, spoiler if you're watching Thursday Night Football tonight, have already scored a touchdown together. So he's looking pretty good going into the playoffs here, probably at the 4-5 seed here.
Yeah, really, he just needs Dameon Pierce to turn things around. He's had a couple of really down weeks, but he's been so solid all year. I think he's going to be able to figure it out. It's not like there seems to be any particular reason other than his team has just been losing big of late, and they haven't been using running back. But of course, I know the big controversy was that we finally had a game that seemed to be decided by people playing injured people. We had 2 zeros in his starting running back position. Now, both these guys were questionable all week, so it wasn't like a super boo him situation. I know he doesn't follow football super closely, but got to check those in and outs on Sunday morning. All right, and then we had a very big game for Ducky here.
Yeah, no, even though apparently Kamara saddened the Olive Man, Alvin's had a couple bad games of late, especially the blowout last week. But overall, Ducky's still looking really good. Miles Sanders obviously ran all over the Green Bay Packers. Justin Jefferson ran all over the New England Patriots on Sunday Night Football on Thursday night Thanksgiving. And Shane's team, although did do pretty well overall, had a couple people that didn't really live up to expectations. Obviously, Geno Smith didn't play as well as he's been doing against the Raiders there. But from this, Shane's 100% in the playoffs, and Ducky's not 100% in the playoffs. He's 50-50 right now. So we're going to see exactly how this turns out the rest of the two games here.
Yeah, and this was a down week for Shane, but his first two running backs, his first two wide receivers have been so solid all year that I got to imagine that this is about his floor at this point. So now his bench is nothing to write home about, but as long as none of those guys get injured, he has a solid shot at the finals, I think. Going in now to Kenny, this was a very important game for him. He did not come out on top, which put him into this 50-50 situation we have here. I think this is going to be the winner makes the playoffs pretty much, unless something crazy happens. Because of this loss here, I mean, it was just everyone played mediocre on his team. No one really ruined it for him, but a bunch of 9s and 10s isn't going to get you there when you're playing against the second place team.
Yeah, the double Derek strategy didn't really work out for him there. And George Pickens, although he has been getting a lot better, is definitely not a wide receiver one yet. So we'll see how he does against Ducky this week when we have him on.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's a good point. His wide receiver core is really hurting.
I think he is getting Mike Williams back this week, so it should be better for him. But we'll see.
Right now, he's projected 0. I was checking that earlier. But of course, the reason that Kyler won, Josh Jacobs had like one of the games of the year. Holy cow. And kind of made up for Travis Etienne's injury. He should be back next week. And he just kind of throws away points with playing Taysom every week, but it doesn't seem to matter. And then we had your matchup, Nick.
Yeah, this is the first time in a long time I can remember ever losing to John. Obviously, Lamar Jackson finally scored over 20 points, which was nice. JT and the K9 did all right. Watson had a great game, but overall, my team is not able to carry weight. Mike Evans hasn't scored a touchdown since week 4. Alan Lazard is probably not even the best king on his team right now, and John's team was very, very, decent to average to good overall. Looking at his lineup here.
Yeah, getting a lot of consistency. He even had the Rams score a point against the Chiefs, which I don't think happens too much. I think most defenses go negative against those guys. But I mean, what your lineup reminds me that those of us who are out, what we're trying to do is get our keeper for next year, and you might have yours in Christian Watson.
Christian Watson or Kenneth Walker. We'll have to see exactly who I can choose there, but yeah, it'll be fun to look at that.
Oh, so Kenneth Walker it's going to be round 5 next year. So yeah, for sure he's going to be. I might actually choose him. Never mind. But you're keeping Christian Watson at least away from somebody else.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun going into next year here after the toilet bowl's over, obviously.
Yeah, less obvious on my team who I'm going to be keeping. But now tell us about the news this week.
Yeah, there's a few injuries that happened last week that affect fantasy to a degree. Obviously, Von Miller had an ab injury that's going to keep him out. He's not playing tonight. He's saying he's trying to be back for the Jets game, which is the following Sunday. Tristan Wirfs, the tackle on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is out. He might be out for a couple weeks. It's going to hurt the offensive line, which is already not that great. They already have a lot of injuries there. Michael Carter, the running back for the Jets, is out, laying way for Zonovan to take the reins there and see how he does. Matt Stafford still doesn't have a concussion, but still is out. Probably is going to be out for the rest of the year based on the Rams being the 4th worst team in the league this year. Mike White is back, throwing 300 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Bears last week. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year for the New York Football Jets. Another injury news is Aaron Rodgers went out of Sunday Night Football. Jordan Love threw a touchdown, but Aaron Rodgers says he has good news about the scans. He is planning on playing this week against the Bears, who he is a part owner of. There was a birthday party of Russell Wilson this week, and half of his team did go to his birthday party to celebrate with him. Some people are saying that only half his team went. I think that 26 people going to your birthday party is kind of a lot, so that's kind of fun. And Sean Watson survivors are going to be at the Texans game this week. About 10 of them are going to show their support for each other, show the world that they are not afraid of this monster.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty cool story. I think that it puts football fans in an awkward position to have somebody who really seems probably to be guilty to be a superstar again. Other thing to not forget is that there are bye weeks this week, even though there weren't last week. The Cardinals are on bye, the Panthers, the Rams, right? Or no?
Yep.
No, just the Panthers and the Cardinals.
Yep. So I'll have to monitor that. Make sure you check your lineups here.
What I was thinking of is next week there is another 6-team bye week.
Yeah, but then next week's the last bye weeks for the rest of the teams in the league.
It's the biggest bye week of the year. So tied with week 9. All right. So now we will transition into our look ahead right now. All right, to get into the look ahead, before we welcome Kenny onto the show, we just have a quick word from today's sponsor.
In a world filled with scum and villainy, there stands a beacon of hope. A small spark hoping to ignite the fire. An uprising that will break the chains of our oppressors. We are at a crossroad that will change the course of history. To defeat the Dutch will be to defeat evil. Rise up, Team USA, and take the reins of your destiny.
There are only 2 things I can't stand in this world. People who are intolerant of other people's cultures, and the Dutch.
Paid for by the Meat Snacks Corporation.
All right, yeah, go Team USA. It seemed like maybe JFK himself was back from the grave to support the team, so very inspiring. And now let's welcome Kenny onto the show. All right, Kenny, thanks for joining us today. We remembered that you like this kind of 80s video game theme, but how is married life? I think last time we saw you were married.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, married life is good. We're a month and a half in. No divorce papers filed yet, so we're off to a good start.
Very nice.
Married life is good.
Now, you happen to be, this was great timing because you happen to be in the biggest matchup of the whole year at the moment. It's you versus Ducky. You're tied. Break down the situation for us. We understand that you have done some research.
Yeah, I've been staring at it quite a lot because I think the playoff scenarios are very interesting this year. So right now, even if I beat Ducky, I'm actually still not guaranteed the playoffs if John wins. Because John has the tiebreaker over me because he beat me earlier in the season. And Kyle beat me as well. So he also is the tiebreaker over me. So if I win over Ducky, lose to Katie, I'm 7-7. If John wins out, he's 7-7. Kyle can't be worse than 7-7. So in that scenario, Kyle and John both get the playoffs. I don't. Ducky doesn't either, I think, because I think he also lost to John. Mm-hmm. I might have to double check that one. I'm actually not certain, but that's it. It's a very strange set of scenarios. John is hanging in there. If he wins out, he actually has a very reasonable chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking at that. Yeah, John definitely did beat Ducky. I remember that. And we were talking about what do you think is going to happen if you and Ducky tie this week?
If we tie this week, so in that scenario, I've already beat him, so I have the tiebreaker over him. But at that point, I think I'm really just hoping for John to lose.
Yeah,
because I have to play Katie the last week of the season, and I'm not excited about that.
Yeah, no, I mean she's in a 9-game win streak, so I guess effectively for you a tie is a win. Now there is a slight chance that Kyle doesn't make the playoffs, and I assume in that case. That would mean that both you and Ducky could make it if he and both lose out, I think.
Say that one more time.
So Kyle does not guaranteed yet. We're trying to figure out who can replace.
John does have the win over him, so John can knock him out. If they are tied at the end, wait, but then so if I win out or Ducky wins out, we'll have a better record than him if he loses out. And if John wins out, he is the tiebreaker over him.
I
There
see.
we go.
So actually, you would be. So there's no scenario where you and Ducky can both be in this.
No, I do not believe there is a scenario where it's Ducky and I. I believe it is either Kyle and John, one of us and Kyle, or yeah, it's stuff like that. Like I don't believe there's a scenario where Ducky and I both make it.
And so now
Which is a shame. I like Ducky as a person. I'd rather see both him and I in the playoffs. If I had to pick someone else in the playoffs with me, I would choose the Olive Man.
Yeah, but if you beat him this week, you're not guaranteed in, but he might be guaranteed out, right?
I think he is pretty much guaranteed out because he has I think he's pretty much guaranteed out if he loses this week. It is must win for him. I would say it's must win for me, but it's not a guarantee for me at that point. I think I still need something to go right, whether it's John losing a game or me beating Katie.
Very interesting. Kind of hard to wrap your head around it all, although I think it is early in the year for 4 teams to already be eliminated. So it's the situation is they may be less complicated than last year, although you're right in the thick of it. And with that,
I'm in the thick of it, and neither of you are, despite you proceeding to doubt me endlessly, Nate.
That is absolutely correct, and we will see if my doubt looks foolish or if I will be telling you "told you so" this time next week. But
hey, I still beat you, buddy. I'd take it as a win for me.
You certainly did. That, I guess, the end of the year is really something I can't hold over you. But let's dig into this matchup here because this is really what it all comes down to. And I'm already looking at Mike Williams and worried that I'm seeing a 0 there for you.
I am also worried. He did not practice today. That is a major concern for me. He is, I think, my best receiver by pretty much a mile. It's not even close. Adam Thielen has occasional upside, but not really. He kind of struggles sometimes. Brandon Ayuk is kind of in there just to fill a hole. I'm a little worried not seeing Mike Williams practice today. That has me a little upset.
Now, of course, he has more upside than any of these bench guys, but you actually have a kind of a tough choice to make if he's out. There's Adam Thielen, Devin Singletary.
Well, I can't put Singletary in at this point. I made that choice.
That's true. And actually, so far, that looks like probably a good call. I forgot they're actively playing right now.
I was hoping that the Patriots defense would show up like they didn't last week. They made Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson look like studs, and Kirk Cousins in primetime actually look like a good quarterback. It was a real shock to me.
Does that mean Zonovan Knight might be getting the call?
There's a chance he gets the call. I mean, that's kind of that toss up spot. Like it's I have George Pickens, Adam Thielen, and Zonovan Knight, and I'll have a wide receiver spot and a bench and a flex spot that I got to figure out.
You know what they call Mike White and Jonathan Knight together? They're the White Knight.
I kind of like the White Knight. I'm kind of on board with this.
Maybe you just go ahead and pick up Mike White as well, just for the good mojo.
You know, I might do it. I might do it for the mojo.
Yeah, but what do you think your percent chance of winning this game is right now, Kenny? Let's say Mike Williams is playing. Put your projections pretty much even.
If he is playing, I would call it a 55, maybe 60% I win. If he's not playing, I think it's as true a 50-50 as it gets. I think this is a very, very tight matchup. I think we're about as evenly matched as it gets. I truly think this is pretty much as equal as we're going to see.
Who are you most afraid of on his team?
I would say Dak Prescott a little bit, but not as much. It's Dak and CeeDee, if they go off really well in against Indianapolis, could be good. Miles Sanders, always a good runner, and then obviously Justin Jefferson is just an absolute beast. I would say it's looking probably Justin Jefferson's the main concern. If he has like an average game, I might be all right. If he has one of those games where he puts up like 30, 40 points, I don't think I have a chance.
Hmm.
For me, I'm looking down kind of at the bench, and I'm thinking Justin Fields has had like 3 50-point games in a row. If Ducky goes with him and he does that, I think that also might end your week.
That would also end my week. Those are kind of scenarios that would screw me. And now, I mean, I'm throwing some dice out here. I'm shooting for the fences. We are full sending it. First game back, I'm sending in Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, Voldemort himself.
I rolled that dice. I knew he was going to sit out there, and I decided really quickly to just pick him up and go with it. So I got him early in the season. I think it was like week 5 or 6. I picked him up in there.
Yeah, we'll see. That could really bite you in the butt. It's a risky move.
I'm here to play for risk. It's you don't win by not trying.
Now, besides this matchup, there really isn't a lot to be discussed other than like positioning for bye weeks. But Snickers, what are you watching this week?
Yeah, the other big playoff implication one as far as seeding goes is Shane versus Katie there. Katie, like we said, unless someone really outscores her by like 100 points, she's basically guaranteed a bye. But Shane is currently probably second most likely to get the other bye behind Kyler right now. So this game, even though it doesn't mean anything as far as making the playoffs, they're both 100% in. It does mean a lot for Shane as far as exactly what seed is he going to get, 2, 3, or 4 probably. Katie's most likely going to stick with the 1 seed right now, even though she's not playing DeAndre Hopkins yet. It's on bye.
That's right. Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. That I think she's definitely in the getting the buck, but whether she gets the 1 seed is a consideration too. Now, this game would go a long way towards Shane getting the bye over Kyler and Matt. He is projected to win. However, she does still have to switch out DeAndre Hopkins, who's on bye, so that actually will even things up pretty well. I'm actually saying this is where Shane ends the streak. What do you think, Kenny?
I haven't been betting against Katie this year, and I seem to have been right. So I'm still pulling with Katie. I think this is her year. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna call it now. The cold shot is I'm gonna lose the playoffs to her, and she's gonna win it all.
You have been always the Katie truther, and I think that if Katie has anyone to thank for her year, it's me, because I don't think I've called her to win a single game this year, and so far this paid off.
It's either thanking you or thanking me for believing in her the whole way. Either way, I think she'll say no way. It's all her. So
her drafting, because she has made almost no roster moves.
Right, her drafting was immaculate.
In ways that no one could have predicted but her. Now, the other game that has some meaning to it is, of course, the John versus Kyler game. You're probably gonna be looking at this one, Kenny, because John, again, he's probably, I think he is out if he loses this week, but he is the only one left who has a shot to take you out other than Ducky. Mm-hmm. And I mean, he already actually has a number of people in this game, so we're getting a preview. Ramondre, they're all so far. It's about halftime, and they all, if they doubled their score right now, they'd all have decent games, but nothing scary.
Yeah, nothing too scary yet, and he obviously has to swap out James Conner on bye, but not too bad so far. So there's some hope there for me.
Yeah, what's really interesting is looking at Kyler's team. Obviously, Travis Etienne coming off the injury might not be 100%. Jacoby Myers is decent, not great. Devontae Smith's very athletic, but not super great fantasy-wise. Taysom Hill hasn't been great in a couple weeks, and Juju's coming off the concussion. That's a tough lineup that all of them technically could go off, but I'm not sure that any of them actually are going to. So I don't know. John has, if he takes out James Conner, which is not a lock, I think John might be able to edge this one out.
And I keep sweating bullets because he's still in there.
Yeah, he does have some good running back replacement options, including Najee Harris and Cordarrelle Patterson. And even Rachaad White has a chance. So this is certainly not a gimme week where you can just focus only on your game, Kenny.
No, There's a lot to think about. Now, there is one other interesting scenario I actually just remembered about with the playoffs that I think is fascinating and I'm scared of because it might come up. If Ducky beats me this week and then he loses in the last week and I win and we're at the same record, the same tiebreaker, it's going to go to points 4, which is insanely close between him and I. We're only off by, I think, like 30, 40 points, if that.
10-point edge you right now.
Yeah, I slightly have the edge, but that's a very close scenario there on who edges who out there.
Yeah, that sounds like a classic Chargers Raiders matchup at the end of last year here. That'd be fun to watch for those not involved. For those involved, it sounds like it would not be fun to watch, but
would not be a fun scenario, and I fear it.
Yeah, that would get intense. I always love when it comes down to points 4 in playoff decisions. Now we saw that you did spend up on Zonovan Knight. Got him out over Shane, which I think is a big win by itself, just because you don't want another fellow competitor in the playoffs getting a potential starting running back. That was the only grab of note. Do you feel like he could be a core part of your team going forward?
It was whether or not he was going to be a core part of the team. Part of my decision was I know I have the money to spend. Not everyone does. And part of it was a bit of a defensive play. It was don't let anyone else get him in case he goes absolutely crazy and starts putting up like 20 points a game. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'd hate to see that happen on someone else's team when I had a chance to take him.
Absolutely. No, I would have done the same thing in your position. I think the other funny thing was that you and Kyle Snickers, the two defense enthusiasts on the waiver wire, both went hard on the Seahawks. This was after Kyle spent huge on whatever defense he had 2 weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, they're my defense the rest of the year. 20 points or $20 was worth it." What's happening here?
yeah, it's looking like the Seahawks have probably the best matchup of the week. So I went after them in a couple of leagues, almost got him in this one. Doesn't matter too much for me. I guess we've been rooting for Kyle for most of the season. We'll see how he does with that pickup here.
Yeah, don't forget, Kenny, that Snickers chose you as his season pick for who was going to come out on top. I picked Kyle.
I do remember that. So fingers crossed. I mean, I think the thing that I'm thinking back to at the very beginning of the season, and one decision I made that is, I think, screwing me now, or I'd be in a very different position right now. When we drafted, when I took Mark Andrews, I had the chance to take Travis Kelce, and I didn't take Kelce. And it was partially a bit of a panic on my part because I was running out of time on the clock. And I just was like, okay, no, I'm willing to take a tight end. All right, Mark Andrews is right there. Click. And then as soon as I clicked it, I was like, Travis Kelce was right there.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That actually would have changed the game. I would have beaten Matt back in week 7 because Mark Andrews was a total dud that week and Travis Kelce did Travis Kelce things. And I think I would have otherwise stayed on the same path. So I would be, 7-5 right now or whatever. And I would be looking a lot better than I am.
Yeah, kind of ironically, I think that move may have also kind of through the downstream stuff taken me out right now because we talk about that change in record alone, I would still have a shot of catching some people in the playoffs, I think.
Yeah, that also would potentially have kept you in the playoff race a little longer.
Well, that probably wouldn't have mattered, but very interesting how the butterfly effect plays out here. Now, I know we're getting to the end of our time today, Kenny. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm not going to say who we're rooting for yet. We're impartial, except for Snickers because he chose you. But we'll definitely be watching.
If nothing else, at least let it be entertaining.
Absolutely, that's why we all do it. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you all next week. No hot takes today because Caitlin's already asleep. So good luck, everyone.